Hello, welcome to the episode of Doclens.ai podcast. I'm your host, Arnab Dey, co-founder and CEO of Doclens.ai. We build insurance risk assistance. And in this podcast, we will hear from experts who are really laser focused on driving business outcomes by leveraging technology, data analytics, and computer science. I'm really delighted to have Piyush Singh as our guest in this podcast. Piyush, welcome. Would you like to introduce yourself to the audience?
Sure. Thanks, Arnab. Thank you for having me. I don't know about experts, but I will give in my comments to whatever is appropriate to the questions that you'll ask. Quick background on me. I have been in this insurance industry for a long time, and like most of us, landed up in there by accident, but loved it, so never left it. Really learned a lot about the insurance industry, and I call myself as version 4 of my career right now. Version 1 was really in the consulting side. Version 2 was being in-house corporate and really learning the corporate side. I actually joined the corporate because I felt that, needed to learn and round myself on the other side after the consulting gig. Version 3 was I left the corporate world on a lark and started a startup and really sort of ran through the startup journey. So I've got plenty of scars from the corporate life as well as the startup life on my back, if anybody ever decides to analyze that. Version 4 is really where I am right now. I'm on a couple of boards right now and an advisory board on a few companies. So enjoy providing whatever value add I can in that respect and go from there. There was one 3.1 version or 2.1, if you want to call it. I did teach as an adjunct professor at University of Cincinnati for around 13 years. So I definitely enjoyed giving back to the community, but most importantly, learning from the new generation as they evolved and seeing how they could be better suited in our industry.
That's fantastic, Piyush. And so in these 4 versions, and particularly probably in the most recent version, I'm sure like AI is a much spoken about topic. What are some of the key examples, interesting opportunities, case studies that you are seeing from your vantage point around where AI is and can potentially change, improve the way business gets done?
So I think, again, I don't think you can get up and spend a day without hearing AI at least 30 times during a day, even if you're not leading a corporate life. I think everything else that you read in news or you travel around or you're being exposed to some way or the other, whether it is true AI or not, you're being told it is AI. Sometimes it's marketing bandwagon, sometimes it's reality. So I think people need to realize that AI is, and people need simpler examples. So I just ran across an example which I think is very, very appropriate. And I think sometimes people treat pure automation as AI. And automation is a very different thing than AI at the end of the day, where you're actually trying to make systems that are much more intelligent to make it happen. So let's take a very real life example. We all have stoplights in all our streets, and people during traffic congestions are going through those stoplights, following the same patterns all the time. And there's a whole red line being built up if you're ever looking up Google Maps or anything else. The objective of AI really, now stoplights are timed the same way. They've got automation to change the timings during peak hours, but doesn't matter how many ways they try it, you've still got a red line, a solid red line during peak hours. AI would really mean that we are studying the traffic patterns in a live mode and providing the most flowing traffic, pretty much what is called, a green zone along the way, which means that people are hitting green light after green light based on the traffic pattern. So that way you're actually getting more people off the road as quick as possible. That requires capturing information from existing cars, capturing traffic patterns, integrating it to the stoplight patterns, rerouting traffic in some other ways so that the same people understand and are guided to take different routes. So that way they spend less time on the road and understanding that AI is actually guiding them to a better quality of life in that respect versus spending the time on the roads itself. That truly is the next stage where we need to get to, but it's also not looking at static data once in a while and going from there. It is truly incorporating day-to-day live information and structuring your life around that, understanding patterns, remodifying your patterns as they happen. A Monday pattern, as you talk to a lot of companies, they'll tell you downtowns are crowded Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursdays these days, not Mondays and Fridays. Okay, now this evolved in the last post-COVID period. So how do you evolve that? So AI is really, people need to understand what AI is. It's not automation. It's not taking a repetitive task and converting it. It is really diving into troves and troves of information, whether it is structured data, and more importantly, when it is unstructured data, diving into those, understanding the decisioning that has taken place, the understanding that has taken place by people, converting it to actually actionable intelligence, and then getting past the noise that it gets created, or the hallucinations as the AI world calls it, or it's also sort of noise level that gets created, getting past all of that to truly provide something that people will value and follow, because there's a trust element built in it, not the skepticism that comes in to say, well, they don't fully understand that part. So if you take an athlete's example, it is really the athlete who plays the game. Think of the basketball guy. He's constantly on the court. He's diving, he's jumping, he's turning left, he's turning right, he's dribbling past players. He has reached the point of muscle memory. I don't think he's actively thinking that much every second to do it. AI's goal is to reach that point in certain tasks that we are like athletes, where it's muscle memory, but it's adaptable to that current situation. It is not just, what did I do last 13 times? I'm just going to do that 14th time. It is adapting to the environmental influence and then acting on that. That's really when we can call it intelligence. Other than that, the rest of the tasks that people talk about doing it, you need to call it automation. There's a big difference.
Absolutely. Okay? Loved your traffic signal example, and for the audience, actively encourage you to check out Piyush's blogs on LinkedIn on good design that he started several weeks back.
I think almost a year now.
Yeah. And just fascinating examples from around the world, from different environments, around examples of good design. And you know what? I really like the examples of bad designs, that what not to do, that you frequently come up with.
Yeah. So I think if you look at insurance industry, now let's get down to insurance industry when we talk of artificial intelligence in there and AI and everything else. I think you really have to look at it from, I look at it as three legs of the stool in the insurance industry. You've got underwriting, you've got claims, you've got actuarial. Now you've got a whole bunch of support functions, and I'm not trying to dilute the importance of that by any means. You've got HR, you've got legal, you've all got, but let's just say those three are the core functions in there. And I think, in my opinion, surplus lines will probably benefit first in AI before you actually get into the standard lines. Partly because I think, just like we talked about the athletes, how do you understand a risk better? So if I look at my startup, what did we do in understanding the risk better? We essentially automated. What did we do in automation? We collected all kinds of information available on the risk and made it available to the underwriter. Okay, we collected it all together, collected more than what they did, and brought it together. Would I call that AI? No, I think I will call that as automation. And yes, we extended it beyond what they were doing and made it more institutional versus a tribal way of collecting information. Also standardized the way it actually got collected in there. So that was very valuable to them. I think taking it to the next stage is when I can actually analyze the data. So let's take a restaurant as an example. I can collect all the information and tell you how many stairs there are. I can tell you whether there's dim lighting, more lighting. I can tell you how much distance is there between the tables. I can look at their health inspection results, bring it all together. I can bring in all the building inspection and building improvements in there and bring it all together. Now I bring that all together, but I still leave it for the underwriter to take a decision whether it's there or not. Now think about, there've been decisions taken over millions of risks over a time period. Okay. I think AI can help you analyze those decisions that were taken in terms of underwriting the risk, evaluating the risk, putting it in a certain bucket, pricing the risk based on the bucket, and subsequent losses that took place and the reasons for those losses. Bringing it all together and then using all that information to analyze the next risk that comes in is truly AI. So one stage is you bring all that troves of information. Second stage is now I'm going to trap all the data that has been collected in the past, see how the pricing was done, what bucket they fell in, go back and look at the loss history of those kind of risks, bring it all together, and then help you evaluate the risk and present it to the underwriter. 80% of the risk maybe go through a straight through processing truly because you've done it. Today, it is automation to say, if this health inspection result is 7, then please don't write it. Or if the FMCSA result says, I've had 4 violations of this kind, do not underwrite. Those are automating decisions on a silo by silo basis. Those are individual. Those are, what I've known as what I would call rules is what it is. I don't think there's intelligence attached to those aspects. Those are rule sets that are there. Those rule sets are not what AI is all about. Rule set, this is where you'll actually dive into troves of information. You look at loss history, you look at unstructured data on the loss submission to truly figure out what's going on. That is really, again, going back to the athlete example, that's the muscle memory of the underwriter. He looks at a risk, he looks at all these things, and his muscle memory, he can very quickly figure it out. These are things that I've experienced before, and this is what I need to be careful about. I talked to an underwriter friend of mine. He said he never writes a restaurant with a balcony because he's got this muscle memory that with the balcony, there's a fear of people falling because after drinks, there's 16 people at the balcony versus 10 people that should be there. And nobody's reading the sign on how many people should be on the balcony. So I think that's the collecting the information in automation, analyzing the data, understanding the factors, and evaluating the risk and presenting it, again, forming the triangle between the three is truly AI aspect. I think if you look at the claims side, I think claims side has probably got equal amount of complication on their end. They get a lot of documentation support provided to them. Sometimes it's hundreds of pages, sometimes it's thousands of pages, especially when you're looking at liability claims in there. Think of a claim examiner who typically is managing 60 to 70 claims at the same time. He's getting 1,000 pages on a claim, and all this information comes in not once, not in 2 times, but probably in 50 times. All this information. And there's no process to say, I need stage 1, stage 2, stage 3. It's all coming all over the place. He or she is juggling between 60 to 70 claims at a given point of time. How do you expect them to be able to sift through all that information and really pick up the golden nuggets? Again, going back to the muscle memory part of, if I only was dealing with 4 claims, I would build my knowledge. Now, he's built his knowledge over a lot of time period, but he or she does miss out sometimes on the salient point. So pouring over that unstructured data set, understanding it better, sifting it through, picking up the golden nugget points, again, going back on the fact that I can analyze in a large language model 10,000 claims, and I can train myself on those 10,000 claims that have happened in the past. Yes, situations will change, but that's where the model will keep adapting to itself versus what I call the rule set. The rule set is what I knew 30 years back, and I'm just doing the same thing over and over again. But the large language models will allow you to learn that and continue adapting it as new things come in. So loss conditions, loss evaluation, claim payout situation, that's really where I feel in the insurance industry, that's where the biggest benefits are going to come in. Yes, you can route the call centers. Yes, you can put some bots and do all that. I'm not going to get into those because those, again, I call automation. Those are not necessarily LLMs that are guiding your intelligence aspects in that. Okay? Sorry, long drawn answer, but I wanted to give some real life examples in there.
Very important nugget that if this, then that logic is not new, but that's automation. Going back to your traffic light and routing problem, that's a 2 to the power n compute problem with approximations and multiple externalities, wherever there is a nearness and an approximation solution that's required, AI is the only way to go.
Yeah.
And human beings also make decisions that are like that, which are probabilistic. We take our best guesstimate all the time, even though we are not realizing.
Another real life example that I've always struggled with, and I don't think there's any been a solution, is what's the best way to get people to enter a plane so that they are seated very quickly, and what's the best way to get them to exit the plane fast? This is a problem airlines industries have struggled to figure out the best way. Everybody's tried all kinds of zoning and seat and aisle seat and everything. All it takes is 3 people in the entire plane or 2 people to disrupt the whole thing. That's all it is. So that's where your entire rule sets that you set up are completely gone, because your rule sets will never work in the real world, and that's the reality of life.
Very true, very true. So AI is a big game changer. What has remained constant, some of the things that the new age AI companies, as they work with legacy companies, should keep in mind in driving transformation? Like, what are some of the examples that come to your mind?
So I think it's very interesting. We talk about the insurance industry and we all talk about where are they on the AI. I think sometimes we forget prior to 2023, the only thing we talked about was legacy modernization. Okay? So what we said is they have way too much legacy and they need to modernize, which was really another word of saying, hey, they have legacy and they're trying to move from legacy to a more modern system, which by the time it's actually more modern, it's actually going to be out of date anyway. Okay? And given the pace at which we went, clearly with AI coming in, a lot of those things are really out of date because they are structured systems based on the same theory of rule sets. If you look at any of these core systems that are there, they are all rule set based systems at the end of the day. Now they're all talking about adapting to AI and, everybody has a solution. I don't know the answer, and I'm no judge to say whether they're there, or is it the same story of every business intelligence tool became a BI tool. Every reporting tool became a BI tool overnight, and every BI tool became an AI and machine learning tool overnight when the trends changed. So now everybody suddenly from, I'm really modernizing your legacy, to everybody saying, I'm a Gen AI solution provider. Okay. So I think, what has not changed is there's always this attraction to the new thing that's out there. And every company needs to say this. But I think we forget that we still talk about old mainframe-based systems in these companies that they've still not got past. We're still talking legacy modernization is probably one thing that's consuming the most. When you look at the budgets for these companies, 60 to 70% of the time and effort is going into core systems even today. Okay? So when you look at all that, you really have to go back and say, okay, how much is the company truly investing, or is it just the gloss factor that I'm hearing about, not the real core effort going in? Okay. I think that's where what has not changed is we forget that there are some really fundamental issues these insurance companies are dealing with. They also deal with an insurance environment that's much more regulatory compliance driven compared to other industries. I think where I see a breakaway, which I pointed out earlier, is I think where you'll see a breakaway is these surplus lines companies. They do not have the same level of rigor that they need to do. They have rigor in a different way. They have a much more openness to adaptability to the current environment and be able to be flexible in that respect. And they want to pivot as fast as they can with every learning that they get. And I think as the surplus lines environments, which of course will be limited in size as it expands, it's a good base for the insurance industry to see how we can adapt to AI and how AI can truly transform the process that we have. It just cannot be pure automation. And there'll be people who'll be skeptical. There'll be legal hurdles. I just recently read somebody's roof shingles were evaluated and their property risk was denied because somebody's, based on satellite imagery, somebody said their roof shingles were not good. apparently it was a church, the pastor actually went public and filed a lawsuit against the company. He said you cannot know the condition till you actually walk on those shingles. Okay. Now, is he an exception, or is he saying, now, are we putting AI actually in there in an overall sphere? Or are we just evaluating in a silo and saying shingle quality not good, risk is denied, period, right? So we
Right.
don't have anything. So again, we have to move from the automation aspect to truly a human athlete, if I like to call the analogy of, they do it enough that it's muscle memory. AI is going to provide us that capability once we have models set in that respect, that it's truly muscle memory of an underwriter, of a claim adjuster that we're actually putting in. And by the way, it's not just muscle memory of one, you're institutionalizing muscle memory of 1,000 claim adjusters into a single tool set.
Right.
That's really what we want to do as part of AI.
So a great perspective for legacy companies to keep in mind. What are some of the things that innovative startups who are bringing AI solutions to the table, what should they focus on? What should they keep in mind?
Yeah, I think, I've always been a believer in technology is not what you're selling. I think your calling card really needs to be a solution to a business problem. That's what people get interested in. That's what actually interests people, because what happens is, I think all your business users have lived a life of 20, 30 years in the insurance industry, where there's always somebody coming in and telling them, this is what you need to do, this is what you need to do. And really, the startup folks get so enamored with their own technology that they don't relate to the actual business problem that the person is facing. So I think what startups really need to do is look at the solution as addressing a business challenge. That's really the key aspect. I think they need to have a customer service and a can-do attitude. Keep in mind, startup is a small entity that you want a large company to rely and base their future on. They need to have confidence in you. They need to have confidence in the aspect that you're going to bring them a solution that's going to be good. In the insurance industry, it is no different than they have 6,000 agents licensed to that insurance company. They need to have confidence in every agent that they're licensing, because at the end of the day, all it takes is 5 agents to blow them up for the year. Okay? So, but it's a trust business. It's a relationship business. That's what they like to do. They want to hear the confidence in an Arnab to say, you know what, Arnab truly understands my pain. He's been through some of this. He understands the business challenge, and Arnab conveys the confidence that he's going to be around to make things happen for me. And when things don't go well, I have confidence that he's actually going to have the positive attitude and not just come to me with hire 15 more people and I'll solve your problem. We need to be, you truly need to be a partner in their business success. And keep in mind, it's not just their business success in the process. For a startup, it's your business success too.
Absolutely.
So don't ever look at it as, hey, we have the best solution, you should just buy us because we are X, Y, Z.
Like AI is immaterial here in this context. The work matters. AI can just change the way of work in a reliable trust situation.
Yeah, because if you're only talking AI, then, if I'm a skeptic, I'm going to find you 4 examples where there's hallucination.
Exactly.
Arnab, it doesn't work. But if Arnab comes across and says, I agree with you, I'm not disagreeing with you, that was a hallucination situation, let's just figure it out and let's see what we can do. Let's train the models so that we can avoid the hallucination situations and then go from there. That makes it much better, because it's no different than the old rule set. Some rule sets didn't work in certain conditions, but people need to have, and now that confidence level needs to be even more in that respect to do that. Because sometimes you are going to get suboptimal responses. Sometimes you're going to have those situations. So how do you address those becomes very key.
Right. And this will also hopefully foster adoption, which always has been a big challenge.
Huge. So, what not to do is, don't run after valuation, don't run after artificial projections, don't convey to the user community all these lofty goals that, yes, they are lofty goals you want to achieve for the user, but I think they also need to take step by step. And you need to ensure that the business user that you're selling it to, you want to be part of his or her success story. because they're trusting you. And at the end of the day, they want to be successful. They want to spend the corporate money, and they're taking equally a chance on you for their company to be successful. And this is something leading edge. So obviously, compared to a typical solution, this one had bigger spotlight within their environment. Anything that's an AI-based tool has bigger spotlight, and also in the longer run, a legal and ethical dilemma for them to say, is my model going to get evaluated, and is somebody going to come in, and a regulator is going to come in and say your model was wrong and you're discriminated? So we are also in that industry that they have to have confidence in you. And there's going to be some standard. The regulators are going to catch up to this, and they're going to look at an outside standard to say, what tells me that the model does not have discrimination, hallucination, and everything else that goes along with it.
It reminds me of the 90s when a small company called Progressive decided to use credit score, and everyone said, what were they thinking? And I think it was now a generation gap, because people who are coming into the insurance industry never questioned that.
Yes.
Extremely thought-provoking point of views. Thank you so much, supercharged. As we come to the end of this, I'll ask three non-insurance, two non-insurance, one insurance related. Your favorite book?
How Will You Measure Your Life by Clayton Christensen. I think the one snapshot I'll just tell you is it gives you a lot of framework to the guidelines. How do you find meaning and purpose in life in a very simple manner? Definitely my favorite book of life.
Wow.
Okay.
Favorite personality?
This might sound like a cliche, but my dad. I love him to death, and he's been a great source of inspiration for me. I think I've seen him through huge amount of responsibilities, but how he still valued family and valued work and being very ethical. And recently I've seen him taking care of being a care person, and I'd never seen him in that respect. But I will tell you, he's come out absolute good. More power to him, because he's been the biggest difference in my mom's life. And it's a role he's never performed for 87 years of his life. And, he's done this in the last 1 year, and I couldn't be more proud of him in that respect. So I've seen him in all different ways. So definitely a person I'm very, very proud of.
87 and adapting.
He's 88 now.
On new sick.
New thing. Still wrote a book in all that caretaker situation, and, got a lot of other things done, but, actually excelled and did much better than, all of us relatives combined in terms of the care that he's taken for my mom.
Right. And thank you, Piyush. I know earlier you talked a lot about your community building for the audience. Piyush is heavily involved in giving back to women education, and you run a school, right?
Yes.
And the last thing is, any advice that you will leave behind for someone who is entering InsurTech or a legacy insurance company?
So I would say learn the domain. It's really important is to learn the domain. Don't be a technology person. Don't try to sort of solve everything in technology. I will say this is a fascinating industry. This industry actually, everybody feels that, but I think this actually runs the economy and really makes a huge difference to the US economy. People are entrepreneur, people are creative, people are risk-taking because there's an insurance coverage behind them. If that was not the case, there would not be a person sitting in the middle of Arkansas starting Walmart if he did not have insurance coverage when the store was open. We live in a litigious society. We live in a very challenging situation. The person sitting in the middle of nowhere is willing to ship his container to any part of the world because he knows the goods in the container are covered. Otherwise, people cannot take the risk of doing anything in this country. So I think insurance really makes a huge difference to this country and the world's economy. We can weather a lot of storms, no pun intended in there, but we can do it purely because life throws challenges. Businesses have their challenges, but insurance industry really protects them. So it's a fascinating industry. It's a complicated industry. It's not an easy industry to learn like retail. But I think if you can do well in this and you can be a business solution provider, you will do very well.
That's very well said. As someone mentioned to me early on, that business is like a coin. One side is asset growth, other is asset protection.
Yes,
So that's you need both. You need both. What a wonderful discussion, Piyush. Thoroughly enjoyed it, and the different perspective that you shared from your consulting days, from your working for an insurance company, to the fun world of a startup, and now your advisory and your helping others, your community. Really enriching, and I hope the audience is going to get something out of it that they can apply. So thank you, and have a good one, everyone.
Thanks, Arnab. Thank you for having me on this podcast, and good luck to you. And definitely looking forward to exciting times ahead for your company.
Thank you.